Good morning. Let's stand for the pledge to the U.S. flag and the Texas flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Good morning. It's 9 a.m. Today is August the 6th, Monday, August the 6th. I'd like to certify we have a quorum of the Commissioners Court present. Commissioner Ortiz has a personal matter this morning, and he may or may not be able to join us by noon. And Steve has briefed him a little bit on what's in the book, and so I want to call the meeting to order. We'll go into budget workshop number one after we've had a chance to look at this. And commissioners, I'm going to let Steve and Teresa and Peggy and whomever else help us walk through this. I would like to ask you, if you would, to let us walk through this proposal, and would you make notes as we go through if you have any questions. And I think it'll sort of all make sense as we get toward the end. There's been an awful lot of work done on the budget this year. We've been fortunate. We've had some increase in our appraised values, and that's helped us overcome some shortcomings and short funding issues that we've had the last few years. And I want to thank in advance Peggy and her staff and Steve and his staff for working so hard with us over the past few weeks to get us to where we are. And so if we could go into this with an open mind, I'll let Steve take us through the budget book. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Judge and Commissioners. And we'll just start by quickly reviewing what we started earlier. And this process page you've seen before, so I'm not going to spend any time looking at it. We basically did our briefings with the department heads, and then we've taken the time and started putting things together. We didn't receive our certified tax roll this year until the last minute. Actually came on the 25th. Prior years we've had it a few days ahead, so we really didn't get a start with the effective tax rate and stuff until after that we received that. The auditor and Lisa and tax office, I believe, helped to have worked on the effective tax rate. So we have the numbers we're going to have for revenue, so we're ready to move forward with presenting this to you. What I would briefly on our schedule, we're here on the 6th. We've on Wednesday the 8th, as you can see, that's the official court meeting where we're submitting the effective tax rate. We'll go through that today with you, but that we have to have an official meeting to have the court consider the tax rate and make a decision on what they want to do with tax rate, proposal for a tax rate going forward. So that's Wednesday. So hopefully today and whatever time we need, we'll be able to get you up to speed on where we're at on that. If we'll flip to tab 2, this again you've seen before when Peggy gave a brief to the court as far as where we were for revenues. This here is the estimated actual revenues for the current fiscal year, for the year ended September 2012, and then also, so looking at the estimated revenues, if you go to the last page, the second to last page, and this is page 3, estimated actual revenues for this year is estimated to be $69,622,139. And that's just slightly over 100%. It's actually 1/10 over. Okay, we're in tab 2, page 3, the third. The rest of them are numbered. I could have just sit down the line. I did this year. Wait a minute. Yes. I'm looking at the estimated actual revenue, the third column from the right. And down at the bottom, the very last number is 69,622,139 is the estimated actual revenue for 2012, just slightly over 100% of what we budgeted. Now, the next column over to the right of that is the proposed budgeted revenue that the auditor has estimated for 2012, 2013. And that proposed revenue does not include any tax change. So what she's proposed here is just what we had, the current tax rate and the current tax revenue for the year. Those things are for consideration as we go through. She couldn't make that proposal because we didn't have any of those numbers. So the proposed revenue is basically the same as what we had actually received last year, but it's $520,000 more than what was in the budget for last year. And then going to the next page, the next page is just summing it up when you look at it with the transfers in. Again, the third column, estimated actual revenues and transfers in for the year is $71,022,139, and for the proposed budget is $70,926,820, which again is $420,000 more than what we had budgeted last year. Say again, Commissioner.
Are you reading the same thing?
I'm looking at the last page, page 4.
Ah, what a coincidence. That's funny.
The combination of transfers in and revenues, that total is $420,000 more than what we budgeted last year. And the reason the difference is there's $100,000 less
Transfers in
the budget for this year for transfers in.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, well, Commissioner, what happened last year, we transferred some money from capital projects into here, and this year we weren't planning.
Just funny that it's exactly.
Okay, yes, sir, yes, sir. Then we'll go to the next section, and Peggy, did you have anything you wanted to add to the next? No.
No, later on, you'll tell the commissioners that we're going to beef up the revenues further.
Right, we'll make those.
Later on.
Yes. And then the next page is the tab 3, yes, sir, Judge. Tab 3, first page. This again, Peggy had presented to us earlier. This is estimated actual expenses for the current fiscal year. And the total appropriations, she's estimated it for this year to be $66,904,692. That's at 93% of what we budgeted. And if you take a look over to the left there, in 2010-11, we actually spent 93.6% of what was actually budgeted. So it's been pretty consistent. 2009-10, it was 93.9. So that's a pretty good estimate, both from her detail that she went through and then also historically looking at it. So and that's by major categories. And then down in the next section is our transfers out to various departments. She's estimating transfers out at $5,843,474 for a total of budgeted appropriations and transfers out for this year of $72,748,166. Now the importance of this is before we could start a budget, we had to have an estimate of what our beginning balance would be for fiscal year 12-13. So that next bottom number, the $20,196,629, That's the budget that, fund balance that we're going to use as far as starting our fiscal year going forward. And that is, again, the auditor does these estimations. It is by statute their responsibility to do both the estimates of actuals and estimated revenues for the coming year. And so that's a good point for us to start. And as Peggy mentioned there, so this is the baseline where we're starting as far as beginning, and then as we go forward, and if are there any questions, basically here, we kind of went through this in our preliminary budget workshops. But moving forward to tab 4, I guess, no, I guess the judges said we can wait.
If you'd like, in this section, if there's some questions, let's go ahead.
Just on the, transfers out on the, just on the Coastal Park Fund. I remember last year, part of that, and maybe that'll be answered later in the discussion, but there was some monies that were taken because we were anticipating that, but we hadn't received that money back from those CAP grants or something. And a hold was put on something, but we've gotten that money back and the numbers look the same here. Does that show up somewhere else?
Well, this what you're looking at in the coastal parks is, we don't have an estimated fund balance for the coastal parks in this presentation. This is just the transfer from the general fund to the coastal parks.
So
that money was not taken, didn't have anything to do with the general fund.
Okay.
That was out.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, tab 4. And I put tab 4 in it just to show, kind of to give you a point of where we were last year when we had adopted our budget for 2011-12. These top lines were what was presented to the court, and so we had budgeted, our budgeted beginning balance was that $20,130,557, and we had budgeted a ending balance of $13,526,000. The next line of that calculation, estimated actual line, I've put in the actual numbers that we started in at 2011, but left everything else the same, using 105% for revenue and 96% for budget. And I had estimated the ending balance, the true ending balance, what I had estimated was $19,226,511 is what the court made their decisions on last year's budget was on the decision that we thought we'd end at $19,226,000. And that's always been a conservative estimate. And what Peggy has estimated now through time and knowing what we have there, she's estimated to be at $20,196,000. So that's about $970,000. We're ending this year $970,000 more than what I had estimated last year when we did the budget. So I guess the point I'm making here is it's conservative when we tell you, when I recommend to you and which we'll have later on for this coming year, the recommendations using these averages, it's always been very conservative, so we don't find ourselves in the short end of the thing, and that held true this year. Now, moving forward to tab 5, and this is the new information. This is the bulk of what we're waiting on. Our certified tax roll, which we received from the appraisal district on the 25th. The net taxable value is $19,503,221,810, and that's the certified information. Going to page 2, which I did number these pages for you because there's a lot of them in here, and I think everything else we going forward you have. Page 2, this is a comparison of our tax roll from 2011 to 2012. Starting at the top, you look at the home site. This is land for home sites. the appraised values for the home site is actually down $42 million. The non-home site land values are up $344 million. Ag market is up on $31 million. So the land values for us net out at an increase of $434 million. The improvement totals, again, the home site improvement has decreased by $90 million, $89 million. The non-home site values increased by $1,132 million.
That's just new construction?
The red line down there, I'll jump to there right now. The red line item on the bottom there, tax exempt properties. They continue to add tax exempt properties to the tax rolls. They've been doing this on didn't capture them all the first year. This is the third year in a row where they've been adding tax exempt properties to the tax overall valuation rolls. And so you see the tax exempt properties went up by $1,182,000, and so that accounts for, in my opinion, the greatest share of the non-homestead improvements and the non-homestead land. Those combination, those two are the big things that increase. So in reality, the non-homestead improvements in land taxable portions did not improve that much. It was because of this input in taxable property, tax exempt property on the tax rolls as a whole.
So the numbers indicate to you, Steve, that this home site reduction of 42 million and change is mainly responsible for the number of the increase in tax exemptions?
No, sir. No, sir. The non-home site and the land and non-homestead improvements, those big increases are the things that are being exempted. In other words, they increase because they put these non-exempt tax-exempt properties on the rolls. That $1,132,000,000, a good portion of that was because they added onto the rolls the tax-exempt property. And so in my opinion, if you take the $1,132,000,000 and the $344 and add those together, you got basically roughly $1.5 billion. And if you take off the lower number to $1,182,000,000, so now you're more in the realm of only $300 million increase in that area, the net. And the bottom line, Commissioner, probably the easiest thing, if you go to the very bottom, I'll go there, but the net taxable value is really the increase is only $672 million, so you can see that these things offset.
I mean, the reality of these tax exempt properties technically really don't have an impact on.
Has no impact at all on our.
They've been exempt all along, and just now showing up here, that's all.
Yeah, but they've been exempt all along, and they've started 3 years ago to add them to. In the past, they never were part of even the appraisal rolls, and I don't know. Robert Cincey told me that that they were looking at that. The previous administration decided to put it on. Apparently, it's not a requirement. They were looking at whether they were going to leave it on there in the future or not. But once they have it all on there, then we won't see these big changes. Once they're there, and then there will be the only increase will be new properties that were tax exempt. So the total assessed, including the total assessed values, including the tax exempt properties, was at $25,824,000,000, an increase of $1.7 billion. And then we go to the next section, which has the exemptions. The homestead exemptions, as we know, the property values decreased and the exemptions decreased by $40 million. The over 65 exemptions increased by 31 million. And then this is the big one, the tax exempt properties increased by 1,182,000,000. The only other big change was the pollution control exemption decreased by over half, decreased by $142 million. So what's out there in pollution control for the current year is only $119 million.
Our over 65 increased by 31 million.
Yes, sir.
Disabled persons by 2.
Yes, the disabled, in the disabled, there's disabled local, and then there's also disabled, yeah, disabled vet is at 10 million. And the abatements down there, second from the bottom, the abatements decreased at 9 million. And the abatements that we have out there right now, the two that are on the rolls is the Barney Davis and the WD, what's it?
Yeah, the one on the ship channel.
One on the ship channel, yeah. Yeah.
2 power plants.
The 2 power plants are, and we are now, right now, we are getting 30% of the taxable value. We're abating 70% at this point in time.
And House Bill 366, is that the widowed vets deal, or is that, what is that? I can't remember.
It's
Values less than $5.
its value is less than $500. And I could put that down.
Property valued at less than,
This is basically a summary of the changes in our taxable values. What I have behind here is the detailed stuff that we received from the appraisal district. And if you go to page 3 and 4, page 3 gives a detailed listing of all these categories that you see in the exemptions on page 4. And so I've added that in there. In the display I put, on page 2, I just combined the things that go together, disabled, et cetera, together so it's for presentation. This page 4, up on top, it says the ARB approved total. So these, the 19, and the net taxable value, which is close to the bottom on the right-hand side, the 19,382,503,533. That's the ARB approved net taxable value. And then if you go to page 6, under page 6, these are values that still are ARB review. There's either some protest or suit or something going on, and at this point in time, there's a $142,021,502 that's still under protest. Now, the appraisal district each year, when they did the certified rolls, they calculate and estimate, which history showed that about 15% of this $142 million will be granted, or put another way, 85% of those values are going to be part of our taxable rolls. And so 85% of this 142 is $120 million. And when you add the 120 million plus the previous on page 4, the 19,382,000, you add those two together, you come up with the certified roll of $19,500,000. Probably a little bit too much information, but that's how they come up with that certified roll.
Interesting number to watch next year is that over 65 homestead exemption. I think you're going to see a big jump in that next year.
Yeah, this been, it's been creeping up every year, I believe.
The baby boomers are getting
Yep.
there.
You're booming.
That's it.
I think we can skip to tab 9, and tab 9 just reflects to you the top 10 taxable values, market values that we have. You can see the market value of Barney Davis and Nueces Bay.
Are you on?
Tab 9.
No,
I'm sorry.
tab 5, page 9.
I apologize. Tab 5, page 9.
Okay.
I misspoke. Page 9. The bottom two, the Barney Davis and Nueces Bay, you can see that the market value is, both of those are 290 million, and the taxable value is at 30% of that. And when we did the tax abatement, as the judge said, they were telling us at the time of tax abatement that the values would be close to 500 million. Now, some of that has come off for pollution control, and some they just didn't have that total there.
How many years is that? How many years did it have a big?
This is the second, let's see, they had 2 years of construction, and then they had 5 years of abatement, so this is the second year, I believe, that of the abatement.
Second year of the 5.
Second of the 5, so there'll be 3 more.
3 more after this.
3 more
Yes,
after
sir.
this.
Yes, sir.
At 70%.
And then whatever the value is, it'll be taxed.
The page 10, 11, and 12 is just there for general information for you that you can look at, and if you have any questions, just come back to me and I'll go get the answers from the appraisal district. But that was the data that they give us going forward. And this is the information that the auditor and Peggy and Lisa used in doing our effective tax rate. So if we want to go to page 13, and this is the calculation of tax rate. I'm going to turn it over to Peggy. What she has here, we'll have is a scenario 1, which is using the current tax rate, and scenario 2, which gives you the effective tax rate.
Okay, Commissioners, going through all that valuation and appraisal district, and what does that mean to you? What kind of budgetary impact there is? And that's the purpose of these worksheets. So scenario 1, like Mr. Waterman said, and this is, the judge asked us to work up 2 scenarios. One using the current tax rate, and then the other one is the effective tax rate. So the total current tax rate is 35.5259 cents per $100 valuation. That's the total tax rate. We subtract out what we're going to apply to debt service, and then the road fund gets a little bit of drainage and farm-to-market tax. So what leaves in the general fund is $29.2786 cents. So following the same methodology we've used for, how much money to budget from current tax collections, that's taken in consideration how much taxes are not being paid, the collection rate, in other words, how much money's got to be deposited in the tax increment financing zones. You've got 2 TIF zones. They're on Padre Island and the downtown zone. So after doing all of that, that bottom line on the far right, right there in the middle of your page, increase in general fund tax revenue budget, $1,902,487. This little formula we've developed over the years, it does modify. You've got to subtract out the property values that have a frozen tax levy. You just mentioned that, the over 65-year-olds and the disabled. And then what you do is subtract out that values, then you multiply the tax rate, then you add back the frozen tax levy. The formula's worked out very well for us in all these years, so there's the impact. Going through all these numbers with you, Steve, down there at the bottom, Commissioners, we do a little recap. What's the taxable value? Then we add back the captured value on the TIF zone. Then we come up with the net taxable value that we use in the formula. Then you add back the tax ceiling property, and this includes, and then that very bottom line, the total market value of all the property, including railroad rolling stock, which is about over $6 million, we got a little bump there, is $19.5 billion. Now, going through these numbers again, Mr. Waterman, Lisa and I noticed there is a little difference in that tax ceiling property, and we're going to follow up with Robert Cincy on that. There's about a $400,000 difference between the total of certified values and values under review as compared to the computer printouts that you recapped. So next page, debt service fund, using the same rate that's in there right now. Now, Judge Neal said, because of all the refunding that's been going on, he was expecting the debt rate to lower a little bit. But the fact is, you've added more debt for this energy efficiency rehabilitation of all the water and lights in the courthouse. And the judge supports the conservative plan to keep those energy savings. We're not going to direct the energy savings until after 1 year. In other words, you've got to have it in the bank before you direct it over to debt service. So we won't be transferring that money realized from energy savings until this budget year that you're doing right now, 2012, 2013. So you got to kind of have the same debt rate. The year after that, then your debt rate should reduce. So right now, then, using the current tax rate, you've got a little $387,992 bump in your debt service fund. And then in the road fund, there's a little increase of $42,556. Now that's using the current tax rate, and because the monies are increasing for your budget, that's mostly due to the increased valuations and new improvements, new growth.
So Peggy, back on page 13, the increase in general fund tax revenue with the 1.9, does that include those two numbers as well?
No,
That's
that's
not-
strictly the impact for the general fund,
That's
Commissioner
strictly
Presley.
the general fund, okay.
13 of that section.
Okay.
Now, this is exactly what we would budget, so there's no other modifications
Oh, I
that
see
need
what
to
you
be
did
made.
up at the top. You took
Yeah.
our total tax rate and you deducted the debt service in the
Mhm.
road fund.
Mhm.
Okay,
Then you put them back on the next two pages.
I got you.
So,
Sir?
the energy savings, you're saying, we borrowed a little money to get all this new green stuff we got around there.
Mhm.
And you're saying you got to have money in hand before you can dedicate it back to the debt service.
Mhm.
I'm trying to understand how we get money in hand from that stuff when I was on, maybe I just don't understand unless they're going to cut us a check, but I thought it was the savings that we recognize would simply be prior to the installation of all this, if our utility bill was $100,000 a month, it would be now $95,000 a month. We'd just see less expenses, but there wouldn't be any more cash in hand. And how do we determine
If I can,
how do you get money to go? I'm just dumb in this area.
One comment, Commissioner, before Steve comments. One of the things we've discovered is that the debt repayment schedule is faster than the energy savings calculation. So you've got to have the cash flow in there to pay that debt sooner than you're going to realize the savings from energy retrofitting. So there's a little timing difference there that you've got to make plans for. That's affecting it. And then the other reason is basically you've got to have, in order to pay off that debt, you've got to have the savings realized before you can pay off debt. In other words, in a 12-month period, you've got to wait for that, savings to realize before you have the money to apply to that SACO loan, we call it, State Energy Conservation loan.
where we get the money from, Commissioner, is actually, the cost for utilities should be less, so it's going to come out of the Public Works budget or the building maintenance budget, and it'll be transferred to debt service. So that we didn't, this year she's putting some of that in the special revenue, and so we'll have it there.
Yeah.
And so it's, the reduced cost is going to come out of the general fund, so the money to pay that debt, we're going to be deferring that savings money over there by reducing the
term on
budget.
that is 7 years, was it? Or-
The
I think the payback is
15.
10. Oh, 15?
15 years,
Okay.
yeah. The only way we could get there was 15 years with this.
So
Now, the other, go ahead.
so we had 120,000, say, just number.
Right.
Reserved for that, to pay that bill,
Mhm.
and then our bill comes to 75,000. So the difference would be
20,
what you put in the reserve to pay off the debt?
exactly, Commissioner, exactly. But see, we want to wait that whole year before we transfer that
Yeah, okay.
difference.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And let me help a little bit here. And I think you all know, we hired LNV to help us verify the savings that Johnson Control says we're going to get in the cost of energy. And we won't be able to do that until we have a 12-month period of actual savings. And what I think Peggy's trying to say is that if you go out 12 months plus the verification time, by then we will know whether or not we got the savings, which you can transfer that money back into the debt service fund. But you can't make it in advance. We have to wait to verify that savings. And our contract says if it's not there, then they make up the difference. And so that we're always going to be a year behind,
There we go.
basically, is what it amounts to. Because we get 12 months of savings plus the verification, then that savings goes back to, and we're going to be a year behind, is what it amounts to.
And if we're not, they cut us a check, it
They're
goes.
they're supposed to make the
That's right.
savings up, to make the debt payments, which is,
They're guaranteed.
which is what LNV is going to help us monitor when we get there.
And remember that the savings is based on, it's based on the actual consumption, not on the cost of the consumption. If the rates vary, that will impact, that, the rate, if the rates went up greatly, we went dollar-wise, we wouldn't save as much as you have the consumption. But what appears to be with our P3 proposal that they're going out right now in their estimates, it appears that we're going to have a decrease in rates going forward. And if that happens, we will have more savings from energy. But again, whether they pay us money or not is all based on the consumption. So
Did that money we borrowed allow for early retirement of that?
Early payment?
I believe SECO allows early repayment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
does.
believe it does.
I don't know the answer to that
Yeah,
for sure.
I-
I don't know, Mike.
Yeah.
We tied everything to the annual energy savings to where at the end of 15 years, hopefully we'd come out at zero cost to the taxpayers. And I can't answer that. I don't remember whether there's a
Yeah,
prepayment or not.
If there's no,
Point is
No penalty,
theoretically, if
yeah.
we were saving a significant amount, we could
Apply
retire
it
the
toward
debt
Early.
early. We
Right.
could just
Right, you
apply
could
it to
do
the
that, yeah.
debt service.
I'm pretty certain that you could do that.
yes, you're right, Steve.
Okay.
And remember, this is 2% money that we were paying on
Yeah,
that.
pretty cheap money,
Even in today.
even today, yeah.
Okay.
The second scenario, Commissioners, is scenario 2, and this is just the effective tax rate calculation on, following the truth in taxation rules. Lisa and I worked up the budgetary impact of using the effective tax rate. Now, the effective tax rate, it's supposed to be almost dollar neutral compared to the taxes collected in the previous fiscal year. Notice in the general fund, and this haunted me all weekend, I go, why are we less, but I can't find any error in our calculation, but the budgetary impact, I would budget $170,594 less. Now, I mean, you're looking at a total tax bill of, close to 52 million, so maybe that is pretty tax neutral, or dollar neutral. Debt service,
16, please, under tab 5.